So, remember when I said that those videos were going to be weekly? Yeah, about that. I think the General MacArthur, Patton, somebody from World War II once said that no battle plan ever survives first contact with the enemy. And that's never been more true than my plan to upload videos every week for this class. I definitely want to, but the realities of my schedule, cop driving by, the realities of my schedule mean that unfortunately it's a little bit difficult to do. Now, I'm very thankful that we have the textbook to make up for that, because, if we didn't, then I don't know what you guys would be learning. But we are gonna have to scale back the expectations on videos just a little bit. Obviously this is one here that you're watching, so not completely scale it back, but I am thinking about redoing kind of the style for these. I still want to do short videos talking about a specific point from each chapter that I find particularly interesting, but I don't think that it's going to make sense to do it every single week. Another cop. Good Lord. So instead, my thought is we'll do maybe a monthly video to go over a broader range of topics. So let's start that right now while I'm driving. Anyway, so this week we're supposed to be doing chapter 2. You should already be part of the way through it, or even honestly completed with it by now, because I think the next quiz is in a couple of days. But there's a couple of things I want to pick out from the chapter that are going to be most important to you when you end up taking the quiz. That's going to be the 2 different types of economies, because while in the book we talk about maybe 3 or 4 different styles, there's really only 2 types. And then also the idea behind supply, demand, and the equilibrium point. Those are going to be the 2 most important factors in the chapter book of this book. So the first thing, the 2 different types of economies. There are essentially, you have your capitalists and your socialists and your communists and your mercantilism or whatever, but there's really only 2 different styles of economies, and those are free market and command economies. Now, what do those things mean? Free market is the essential idea that all economic decisions should be made by businesses and people. So most industries are privatized, which means they're owned by people or by corporations, and they are not under the direct control of the government, right? So there's laws that keep businesses from breaking the laws, right? You don't want a company that's just poisoning rivers and things like that, of course. But broadly speaking, the state does not control the output of the business. And then you have a command economy, which is kind of the opposite of that. So a command economy is where most decisions are made at the top, whether it be state-run industry or just extremely, extremely heavy legislature, or complete control of the entire economy by the government. And great examples of free market economies are like the United States. But another example of a command economy would be something like China, which is sort of like a state-controlled capitalistic society, or North Korea or Vietnam, which are actual communist countries. And so, when thinking about it, I think that where your country will fall on the economic divide will come down to this understanding. Let me switch hands really quick because that was getting tiring. I think that it's going to come down to essentially one of 2 beliefs you have about people. If you are someone that has a fundamental skepticism of government, of state authority, you are probably going to be oriented more towards a free market system where people have the ultimate choice and businesses who are closer connected to people make the economic decisions, more or less. if you have a fundamental high opinion of the state and you believe that the state is a force for good necessarily, then and perhaps that you have a skepticism towards big business because you've seen them abuse people or whatever it might be, then you're going to feel more compelled towards a command economy. Now, while I understand and I think that that's a pretty fair reading of the two different economies, I don't believe that they are equivalent. The free market is what allows people to grow beyond their means into a new place that perhaps they never would have thought possible, right? I like to think of it, and I wish I had a board to write this on, but if a socialist country or a command economy of some kind has a dedicated floor, like, economic floor, like you as a civilian in a socialist country cannot go below this amount of money because there's government policies in place to prevent you from going into poverty. Socialist countries also have a ceiling that's fairly low to prevent people from getting too wealthy, right? The idea is they want to balance out the scales a little bit between the rich and the poor. And a free market society has a pretty much unlimited floor, though in America we really don't. Truthfully, we don't really have an unlimited floor. People go bankrupt all the time. There's so many different programs that keep you from an unlimited floor. But let's just say for fun that there's an unlimited floor in a free market society, and then there's an unlimited ceiling. That means you can get as poor as you possibly can, but you can also get as rich as you possibly can. And as we talked about, if you might have read this, I guess, in the textbook, because we maybe didn't talk about this, but when you're talking about the two different types of societies, it's the responsibility lies upon both the government and businesses in order to create a system where this can happen, right? So those are the two basic ideas behind the different types of economies. Like I said before, one of them has led to the iPhone, and one of them has led to tens of millions of people starving to death all across the world. So I think you know which one I prefer. But you do you. The second thing we need to talk about is the supply and demand curve, which you've probably seen this before if you've been in any other classes in high school or whatever. It's pretty basic, but there's some questions about this on the quiz, so I'd like to at least explain it to you. So basically, actually, in one of my other classes, there was a student who was looking into purchasing t-shirts, and he told me that he saw how the rate of cost per t-shirt lowered as he bought more t-shirts. So he had this great idea. He was like, I'm going to buy, my hair looks insane. I look like Jimmy Neutron right now. He was like, I'm going to buy as many t-shirts as I can because the rate is going to be super, super low. It's going to be great. And I'm like, interesting idea. Let's see how that works. Well, the reality sunk in that he bought all these t-shirts, but the demand was not there for those t-shirts, so he couldn't sell them all. And even though, let's say it was only $4 a shirt versus $6 or $7 a shirt if he bought less, the fact that he had so many that went unsold meant that he was kind of upside down anyway. And so that's the idea behind the supply and demand graphs that you'll see, right? We need to examine what our supply should be, and then also determine what the demand is. So it's not ever a perfectly right idea to just make the most of a thing, because you will leave yourself with unsold product. But it's also not a good idea to purchase too little or make too little, because then you may not sell enough, or the individual purchase price might be too high. So for him, let's just say that he needed to make 25 t-shirts. Or well, let me back up. Let's say, for example, that he wanted to get 100 sales. That was his goal. He wants to get 100 sales. He has to find where on the graph, where in the pricing grid he can select his t-shirt to be in order to make that much money. So you'll see on, I'll put up a graph so you can see. But basically the idea is you're finding the middle point where the demand curve, which goes in one direction, and the supply curve, which goes in the opposite direction. You're trying to figure out where the intersecting lines are, and that's what you want to price it at, and that's how many you want to make. So for him, he might need to make, forget about the part about 100 t-shirts, whatever, but let's say that he wanted to find the equilibrium point. That's a term that you need to know. The equilibrium point is that point where the X begins, where the lines intersect. So it's pretty basic concept, and you'll see it on the quiz. It's going to tell you what the equilibrium point is. Just find the one in the X. But yeah, so those are the two big things that I think that are the most important to talk about from chapter 2. Now, something I would like for you to do, obviously, is read it. I think that all of you people have done a pretty good job so far of reading the textbook. At least it seems like it. I'm going to try to do more videos, but it's just, there's a lot going on. So it may be more, or you might see me more often, you might not. But I'll always at least give you a review or a roundup of some of the ideas, the big ideas from the text that I think are the most interesting, whether it's in an announcement on Canvas or it's through one of these types of videos, or if I have the time, maybe do something a little bit more produced, But yeah, so hopefully that makes sense. Hopefully you're enjoying this. Hopefully this looks good, because I have my phone facing away from me, so I don't even know if I'm in the shot or not. I don't remember which of these 3 lenses is the main one. But yeah, that's about it. Email me if you have any questions, and then otherwise, I'll catch you guys next time. Bye.